Here's a healthy young man who visits the DPRK, commits a crime, and ends up in a coma, in a vegetative state, on your watch. How can Americans think of that and not feel some kind of deep resentment about the country that arrested him and imprisoned him, didn't let his family visit him, didn't let the Swedish ambassador have consular access to him?
이 행정부나 혹은 그 어떤 사람들이 그 어떤 목적을 위해서 우야 완배우가 사망하게 만들지 않았는지, 그 미국 내 반공화국 적대 감정, 반공화국 여론 이런 걸 더 조장시키고 불러일으키기 위해서 이런 목적 추구해서 우야 이렇게 하지 않았는지 이런 생각이 듭니다.
That was New York Times columnist Nick Kristof speaking with a senior North Korean official who suggests the United States government let American student Otto Warmbier die to stir up anti-communist sentiment. And Nick Kristof joins us now. His latest piece in the Times, Inside North Korea and Feeling the Drums of War, comes after a 5-day trip to North Korea and gives a glimpse at life inside the country and the growing hardline sentiment among its population toward the United States. Nick, good morning. Good to see you.
Good to be with you.
You've been in North Korea before, most recently in 2005. You're always watched, you're always minded there, but you say this trip was much different.
Yes, I mean, look, it is always a very bizarre place. This time there was a military mobilization that I have not sensed before. There was a menace in the air that I have not sensed before. Everywhere you go in Pyongyang, the capital, there are posters showing missiles striking the U.S. Capitol. And maybe, the thing that kind of shocked me the most was that we were isolated in the official foreign ministry guest house. And at first I thought this was to separate us from people so we couldn't do our reporting. I gradually came to realize that no, this was to protect us, that the foreign ministry was engaged in an outreach to American journalists, and the security forces might not be fully behind that outreach.
They suspect you were a spy of some kind?
One person, the military in the past had agreed to give me interviews. This time they refused, and I was told that that's because the security forces regard every American journalist as a spy, and they didn't want things to go wrong.
Nick, given how on edge things were there, imagine we had an incident between, say, an American ship and a North Korean ship, or between an American aircraft flying near North Korean airspace. This happened a few weeks ago with the B-1s. What is your sense of how this will play out? Do you think there's any ability or any interest on the part of North Korea to manage a crisis with the United States? Or do you think where the Trump administration now is and where North Korea now is, that if something happens, it's a spark?
So I think that there are forces within North Korea who would like to manage a crisis, who understand the risks. I think that's why the foreign ministry is reaching out. But I think that the foreign ministry and the State Department in the U.S. are both, frankly, kind of marginalized by hardliners, and that hardliners are ascendant in each place, and that Kim Jong-un is leveraging President Trump's comments to back his own narrative, that he needs nuclear weapons for defensive reasons against those American imperialists who want to attack him. And so everybody is on a hair trigger. And when you have that kind of hair trigger, things go wrong.
You quote a man on the street saying that he believes that North Korea could destroy the United States in a nuclear confrontation. That's delusional, obviously, but my question is, does the North Korean leadership believe that it has the capacity to, quote, destroy the... How disengaged from reality is the leadership in your assessment?
That's very hard to know. And clearly, I think they're engaged in a certain amount of bluster and bluff that probably parallels what President Trump is engaging in. But it's also clear that they are steeped in a narrative in which they have repeatedly defeated the U.S. Their narrative, and they went through the History Museum there that shows the U.S. attacking North Korea to start the Korean War. Then North Korea defeats them. No mention of Chinese help. Repeatedly after that, confrontations, North Korea outmaneuvers the U.S. And one challenge globally is that dictators come to believe their own propaganda. And so it seems to me indeed plausible that they may believe these astonishing things that they tell me about, yes, that they can not only survive a nuclear clash with the U.S., but even triumph.
Nick, you think that there need to be talks without any preconditions, and that would be controversial among some factions in the U.S. How do you see that path proceeding?
Well, unfortunately, I don't see it as likely proceeding. I think it is, maybe the last best hope to avoid some kind of confrontation or just long-term deterrence. But I don't think that there is appetite either in Washington or in Pyongyang for those kind of talks. And I mean, I must say, I was kind of surprised that the North Koreans, when I was pushing this line or pushing a version of a freeze for a freeze, they weren't very interested.
This is very grim. You do not seem optimistic remotely.
I got to say, I came back from, I mean, I went to North Korea not feeling particularly optimistic. I came back really feeling that we are not going to be able to stop them, that talks, meaningful talks, some kind of a deal is not possible, and that nobody really wants a war, but we could well have one because of mismanagement.
Joe?
So, and that's what I wanted, Nick, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Donald Trump obviously confronting the North Koreans in a way that even the top Republican in the U.S. Senate on foreign policy says could lead to World War III. From your unique vantage point of obviously reporting on Donald Trump every day and doing what we do every day, but then going to North Korea and getting a unique perspective, how do you look at Donald Trump's tweets? How do you look at his words? How do you look at his insults, his petty attacks differently after coming back from North Korea? How could this feed into a war that, if not was World War III, could still end with the death of hundreds of thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands of South Koreans?
Well, Joe, I think that he is trying to intimidate the North Koreans and aims to get them to pull back. I don't think that's going to happen, and in fact, I think it's counterproductive. This is their turf of these kind of threats, and it does play into their narrative. This gives them legitimacy to pursue the kind of nuclear policies that they are pursuing, and puts us all on the edge of a cataclysm.
Any signs that the sanctions are really making an appreciable difference?
Yeah, I'd say that the sanctions are making a difference. Gas prices have approximately doubled. There are power outages all the time, even in Pyongyang, the capital. Half the day they have no power. Business people are clearly talking about it, but it's a pinch. And the larger context is that the North Korean economy is actually growing substantially faster than the U.S. economy, partly because they've been liberalizing their economy and boosting productivity.
Nick Kristof, thank you for your reporting on this, for sharing it with us. You can read his full account, and you should, of his time inside North Korea online at NewYorkTimes.com. And Jeff,
thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.